Good morning, beloved son and beloved daughter of God. My precious brother and my precious sister in Christ Jesus, I welcome you to this powerful moment of spiritual investiture and divine empowerment. May the peace of the Lord be with you, my brother and my sister, as we enter into this sacred time of prayer that will place the scepter of liberation in your hand. Prepare your heart, for what we are about to experience together will activate your spiritual authority to decree supernatural healing over every sickness, disease, and infirmity that has held bodies, minds, and spirits in bondage. Dear brother and dear sister, the God we serve rules his kingdom with perfect justice and compassion. In ancient times, the scepter was the symbol of a monarch's authority to render judgment, issue decrees, and grant freedom. Today, as our faith joins together, we will receive the spiritual scepter that authorizes you to make declarations with heaven's backing and decree supernatural healing with divine effectiveness. Not with timidity or uncertainty, but with holy confidence in your delegated authority, we approach this throne of grace to receive the divine empowerment that transforms you from a passive petitioner of healing to an active liberator who decrees freedom with the full force of spiritual authority. Beloved son and beloved daughter of the Most High, take a deep breath and sense the royal scepter of liberation being placed in your hand even now. Feel the weighty authority of this divine instrument, not a symbol you've claimed through presumption, but an emblem granted through divine delegation. There is a holy commissioning taking place in this moment, an official authorization that empowers you to extend this scepter towards sickness and disease, decreeing their dissolution with the same authority that Esther's king extended his golden scepter to grant her petition. As we call upon the name that is above every name, Jesus Christ, we stand in the delegated authority that he has given us to exercise the scepter of liberation and decree supernatural healing with divine effectiveness. Heavenly Father, we come before your sovereign throne with hearts full of reverence and spirits ready to receive the scepter of liberation. Lord God Almighty, before we present our petitions, we pause to honor your supreme authority and to exalt your holy name. You are the King, eternal, immortal, invisible, the only wise God. Your scepter is a scepter of righteousness, your judgments are perfect, and your decrees are irrevocable. We stand in awe of your unlimited power, your flawless wisdom, and your boundless compassion. You are worthy of all praise, all glory, and all surrender. Father, we worship you for who you are. You are the God who rules with perfect justice, who governs with unmatched wisdom, who decrees with absolute authority. You are the God who delegates power to his children, who shares his authority with his heirs, who empowers his representatives to act in his name. You are not merely a God who occasionally heals. You are the God who has systematically established channels through which his healing power flows from heaven to earth. Even when sickness seems terminal and disease appears incurable, you remain the ultimate authority who has extended the scepter of liberation to those positioned to exercise this royal function. Lord, as we seek to receive the scepter of liberation today, we first humble ourselves through honest confession. We acknowledge that sometimes we have failed to exercise our spiritual authority through ignorance, through insecurity, or through false humility. Forgive us for moments when we have prayed timid prayers instead of issuing authoritative decrees, when we have begged for healing instead of commanding it, when we have spoken to you about our mountains instead of speaking to our mountains about you. Cleanse us with the precious blood of Jesus that qualifies us to hold the scepter of liberation. Create in us clean hearts, O God, and renew right spirits within us, positioning us to receive and responsibly exercise the spiritual authority you are placing in our hands. Mighty God, we now turn our attention to the sicknesses, diseases, and infirmities that have held bodies, minds, and spirits in bondage. These conditions have manifested in various forms, as physical ailments that have damaged organs and systems, as mental disorders that have distorted thinking and perception, as emotional wounds that have fragmented souls and personalities, as spiritual oppressions that have darkened understanding and blocked connection with God. Whether originating from natural causes, from demonic attack, from personal choices, or from others' actions, these bondages were never your intention for our lives or the lives of those we are called to liberate. Your word declares that the kingdom of God is not in word but in power. Today we stand in the authority of your truth to exercise the scepter of liberation and decree supernatural healing with divine effectiveness. In the power and authority given to us as representatives of the kingdom of God, As those who hold the scepter of liberation, we now speak directly to every sickness, disease, and infirmity holding bodies, minds, and spirits in bondage. Physical ailments that have damaged organs and systems, we decree your complete dissolution now in Jesus' name. Mental disorders that have distorted thinking and perception, we decree your total removal now in Jesus' name. Emotional wounds that have fragmented souls and personalities, we decree your perfect healing now in Jesus' name. Spiritual oppressions that have darkened understanding and blocked connection with God, we decree your absolute banishment now in Jesus' name. Every condition, every symptom, every manifestation that contradicts divine health and wholeness, we declare you subject to our spiritual authority through the scepter of liberation we hold in Jesus Christ. Lord Jesus, we apply the power of your blood to the decrees we issue with the scepter of liberation. As kings of old would seal their decrees with royal signet rings, we spiritually seal our declarations with the blood of the Lamb that validates our authority and empowers our commands. Where chronic conditions have established strongholds of symptoms, we decree with scepter authority their complete dissolution. Where hereditary diseases have created generational patterns, we command with delegated power their permanent breaking. Where demonic afflictions have produced persistent torment, we declare with divine authority their total cessation. Your blood authenticates our spiritual position. It empowers our decrees, it authorizes our commands, and it establishes our legitimacy as holders of the scepter of liberation. Father God, we declare that as those who hold the scepter of liberation, we now exercise spiritual authority to decree supernatural healing. What has imprisoned body, mind, and spirit must now yield to our authoritative declarations. What has resisted casual prayers now surrenders to our scepter-backed commands. What has persisted despite general petitions now dissolves before our specific decrees. We are being established in our kingdom authority as those who wield the scepter of liberation to release divine healing and supernatural restoration. Holy Spirit, we invite you to flow like royal anointing through our scepter ministry, empowering every decree we issue, every command we speak, every declaration we proclaim over sickness and disease. Where there has been chronic illness, bring supernatural healing through our authoritative decrees. Where there has been mental torment, create divine peace through our scepter commands. Where there has been emotional wounding, establish complete restoration through our empowered declarations. You are the Spirit of power, working through authorized vessels to bring liberation to every dimension of human existence. Gracious God, we rejoice that you are not only healing us, but placing in our hands the scepter that liberates others. Today, we deliberately receive this symbol of spiritual authority, not as a temporary empowerment, but as a permanent commissioning that establishes our identity and authorizes our decrees. We embrace our position as scepter bearers in your kingdom, authorized to exercise authority in the realm of healing and deliverance. We accept our responsibility as royal representatives, commissioned to decree supernatural healing in alignment with kingdom principles. This scepter of liberation becomes our constant reminder that we no longer function as powerless subjects, but as authorized delegates whose words and commands carry divine power to liberate the captives. Lord, we recognize that effectively wielding the scepter of liberation requires us to speak with the confidence, precision, and authority that reflects our spiritual position. So we now commit to developing a decree mentality, replacing begging prayers with authoritative declarations, wishful requests with confident commands, hopeful suggestions with powerful proclamations. We will study how Jesus issued commands rather than offered prayers when confronting sickness and disease. We will practice speaking directly to mountains rather than merely speaking about them to God. We understand that the scepter's authority is exercised not through elaborate ceremonies, but through straightforward declarations that align with your eternal word and revealed will. Father, shield us now with your divine protection as we hold this scepter of liberation and decree supernatural healing over sickness and disease. We know that the enemy violently opposes this investiture of authority, for believers who wield the scepter of liberation threaten his illegal operations in the realm of sickness and bondage. He will attempt to challenge our authority through persistent symptoms, through contradictory reports, and through accusations that question our right to issue decrees. But we stand firm in the knowledge that greater is He who is in us than he who is in the world. No weapon formed against our spiritual authority shall prosper, and every voice that challenges our scepter-bearing position we shall silence. This is our heritage as servants of the Lord. Mighty God, we declare that a new reality of spiritual authority and decreeing power is being established in our lives even now. This is not a temporary empowerment or a sporadic function, but a permanent commission and a consistent authority that transforms how we address sickness and disease. What has been theoretical is becoming practical. What has been positional is becoming operational. What has been potential is becoming actual. You are the God who does not leave things half-developed or partially mature. You carry your work to completion until the day of Christ Jesus. Lord Jesus, we thank you for the ultimate price you paid to place the scepter of liberation in our hands. You surrendered your authority so that we might exercise it in your name. You submitted to powerlessness on the cross so that we might walk in power through your resurrection. You allowed yourself to be afflicted with stripes so that we might decree healing through your wounds. You endured heaven's judgment so that we might declare heaven's favor. By your sacrifice we have been authorized, not through human appointment, but divine commission, not through earthly credential, but heavenly endorsement, not through organizational recognition, but kingdom authorization. The qualification for our scepter-bearing ministry was secured at Calvary, and the authority to function in this capacity was bestowed through your resurrection. Holy Spirit, illuminate the Word of God in our hearts so that we might exercise our scepter authority with wisdom and effectiveness. Give us spiritual discernment to issue decrees that align with kingdom principles and divine timing. Empower us to accurately represent heaven's will on earth, commanding in harmony with divine purpose and decreeing in accordance with eternal wisdom. Your guidance governs our declarations, and your wisdom directs our authority as we decree supernatural healing from our position as scepter-bearers in the kingdom. Father God, we speak directly to any doubt or confusion about our spiritual authority that would undermine our effectiveness in decreeing supernatural healing. To internal hesitations that question our right to issue commands, to external circumstances that challenge our scepter authority, to theological misunderstandings that deny the power of authoritative decrees, we say, be silenced and removed in Jesus' name. We declare that our effectiveness as holders of the scepter of liberation rests not on our perfection, but on Christ's finished work, not on our ability, but on his authority, not on our track record, but on his faithfulness. The same power that raised Christ from the dead now operates through our authoritative decrees, producing healing results that human effort, medical intervention, and psychological techniques could never achieve. Merciful Father, we bring before you the most severe cases of sickness and disease that have seemed beyond healing, the terminal diagnoses, the incurable conditions, the treatment-resistant disorders, the chronic afflictions. Pour your healing virtue through our scepter-backed decrees into these seemingly impossible situations. Where medical science has reached its limit, reveal through our authoritative declarations that you are the God who specializes in the impossible. Where multiple treatments have failed to bring improvement, demonstrate through our empowered commands that you are the healer who never fails. Where damage has been pronounced irreversible, show through our scepter authority that you are the Creator who makes all things new. These dire prognoses were never your final word, and we refuse as scepter-bearers to accept them as such. Lord, we declare that we are fully embracing our identity as those who hold the scepter of liberation. No longer will we be restricted by uncertainties about our authority, by hesitations about our right to decree, or by misconceptions about the power of our declarations. We are authorized representatives of the kingdom, bearers of the scepter of liberation, issuers of healing decrees and commanders of supernatural restoration. We carry the divine authority that enables us to speak to sickness and disease with the full backing of heaven's power. We receive this sacred identity, this kingdom authority, this decreeing power with humble gratitude and bold faith. Heavenly Father, we recognize that this scepter of liberation is placed in our hands not merely for personal benefit, but for the liberation of a suffering world. Today, we choose to become faithful stewards of our spiritual authority, not occasional wielders when convenient, but consistent exercisers of your decreeing power. The scepter we hold becomes healing, we release. The authority we carry becomes liberation, we decree. The power we exercise becomes restoration, we establish. Use us as instruments of your kingdom authority in a world bound by sickness, disease, and infirmity. Gracious God, strengthen our inner being with supernatural might through your Spirit, so that we might hold this scepter of liberation with unwavering confidence and exercise our decreeing authority with consistent effectiveness. Commanding healing when symptoms persist requires steadfast commitment to your word, unwavering trust in your power, and immediate rejection of doubt. When challenges arise to our scepter authority, remind us of who we are and what we hold in our hands. Help us to maintain our decreeing boldness, understanding that consistent exercise of authority often requires as much spiritual strength as initial commissioning. Lord Jesus, we declare that every dimension of the healing you purchased will be manifest through our scepter-backed decrees. Though some conditions may not immediately respond to our commands, our authority remains undiminished. Though manifestation may develop progressively in some cases, our confidence stays unwavering. Though questions may arise about varying results, our resolve continues steadfast. You have not given us a spirit of fear, but of power, love, and a sound mind. We embrace this sound mind that processes spiritual authority according to divine wisdom rather than visible circumstances. Holy Spirit, guide us in this ongoing journey of scepter-bearing and decree-issuing ministry. Direct us when to issue specific commands, when to make general declarations, and when to establish ongoing decrees that create atmospheres of healing. We depend on your guidance for every exercise of our scepter authority. Reveal any area where our understanding of kingdom principles needs deepening, or our application of decreeing power needs refining. Illuminate every opportunity to extend liberation to others, not to overwhelm us with responsibility, but to inspire us with possibility. Father God, we praise you for the investiture that is occurring even as we pray. We perceive our scepter authority being established, our decreeing power being confirmed, and our healing effectiveness being increased in the spiritual realm. We will not be astonished by the manifestation of supernatural healing through our commands and decrees, for we know that Jesus promised, "You will receive power when the Holy Spirit comes upon you." Our expectation is anchored in you alone, and our confidence is unshakably secured in your perfect faithfulness and unlimited power. Lord, we claim the promise of your word that declares, "He sent his word and healed them, and delivered them from their destructions." This effectiveness is not something we achieve through our own efforts, but something we receive through faith in our delegated authority. It is not dependent on our feelings, but on your commission. It is not limited by our weaknesses, but magnified through your strength. As we continue functioning with scepter authority, the healing flow becomes more powerful, the liberation impact becomes more comprehensive, and the restoration results become more permanent, affecting not only our lives, but the lives of countless others who need divine intervention. Heavenly Father, we decree that every challenge the adversary has launched against our scepter authority is hereby nullified. The price that qualified us for kingdom authority has been completely paid by the blood of Jesus. The accuser who questioned our right to decree has been silenced by our advocate, Jesus Christ the righteous. We stand before you completely validated, authorized as kingdom representatives, clothed in Christ's perfect righteousness. No accusation shall undermine our authority, and no opposition shall diminish our effectiveness as bearers of the scepter of liberation. This is our unalterable heritage as servants of the Lord, purchased with the precious blood of Jesus and guaranteed by the seal of the Holy Spirit. Father, we declare that the same supernatural power that flowed through Jesus' authoritative commands is flowing through our scepter-backed decrees today. What appears medically impossible in the natural realm becomes divinely possible through our kingdom authority. Like Jesus, who spoke to diseases, disabilities, and demons with the calm confidence of absolute authority, we issue decrees to sickness and infirmity, knowing that our scepter position has been divinely established and our healing commands are heavenly backed. We refuse to be limited by earthly expectations or constrained by natural limitations. Our effectiveness is determined by your eternal purpose, not by temporal obstacles. Lord Jesus, apply the power of your precious blood to every aspect of our scepter authority and decreeing ministry. Your blood speaks with greater authority than any human or demonic opposition. It speaks legitimacy where there has been question, effectiveness where there has been frustration, and impact where there has been limitation. We declare that through your sacrifice we are completely authorized. Our decrees are empowered to heal the sick. Our commands are validated to liberate the bound. Our declarations are endorsed to restore the broken. Every challenge to our scepter authority is being silenced as we align with your truth and your kingdom. Holy Spirit, seal this work of scepter investiture and decree empowerment in our lives. Where your authority flows, healing manifests. We thank you for the scepter of liberation that flows exclusively from your empowering presence. Fill us afresh today, immerse us anew in your power, and establish within us unshakable confidence in our decreeing authority that cannot be undermined by contradictory symptoms, persistent conditions, or temporary setbacks. May our empowered lives become compelling testimonies of your authority granting, decree empowering, healing manifesting power. Father God, we position ourselves in the reality of scepter authority today, leaving behind hesitation about our decreeing power and stepping into the full exercise of our liberation ministry. We occupy this empowered position with unwavering faith and holy determination, refusing to be moved by anything that contradicts your eternal word. We fix our gaze intently on Jesus, the author and finisher of our faith, who exercised perfect authority during his earthly ministry and has delegated that same authority to us as his body on earth. Following his example, we decree, we command, we declare healing through the authority of his name and the power of his blood. Lord, we praise you for the scepter authority already established through Christ Jesus. We rejoice that we no longer stand powerless before sickness and disease, for Christ has placed the scepter of liberation in our hands. We now function as authorized representatives, empowered to decree supernatural healing over every form of infirmity and bondage. Your Spirit now flows unhindered through our authoritative declarations, bringing liberation to bodies, minds, and spirits that have suffered under the oppressive weight of sickness, disease, and infirmity. Mighty God, we decree that the enemy's assignment to undermine our scepter authority terminates today. Every hellish strategy designed to question our right to decree or limit our healing effectiveness becomes powerless against the superior reality of the Holy Spirit working through us. We align ourselves completely with your divine purpose, echoing Jesus' words, "Not my will, but yours be done." We surrender our limited understanding of how healing should manifest, our predetermined expectations of when it should appear, and our restricted perception of what it should look like, trusting implicitly that your methods transcend our finite comprehension. Father, we cast every anxiety about our decreeing effectiveness and healing results upon you, confident in your perfect wisdom. The concern about apparent failures, the frustration over partial outcomes, the worry about complex cases, we release it all at the foot of the cross. In exchange, we receive your transcendent peace that surpasses human understanding, protecting our hearts and minds in Christ Jesus. This supernatural peace becomes our stabilizing center as we exercise our scepter authority with faithful persistence and unwavering trust. Lord Jesus, just as you commanded with perfect authority as the Word made flesh, we now function with scepter authority to decree supernatural healing with divinely delegated effectiveness. Where degenerative conditions have created seemingly irreversible damage, we issue authoritative decrees for creative miracles. Where chronic pain has established persistent suffering, we speak empowered commands for complete relief. Where terminal diagnoses have pronounced death sentences, we declare with scepter authority divine intervention and life extension. Your investiture establishes the perfect conditions for our liberation decrees to produce tangible, visible, transformative results. Holy Spirit, transform our perspective from symptom consciousness to authority awareness. Enable us to perceive not the persistence of disease, but the permanence of our scepter authority. Remind us continually that we have been given the keys of the kingdom, viewing sickness from authority's vantage point rather than from infirmity's disadvantage. From this position of spiritual empowerment, we decree healing with unshakable confidence, divine wisdom, and supernatural effectiveness. Father God, we thank you that you are establishing us as bearers of the scepter of liberation in our families, our communities, and our spheres of influence. As we exercise this spiritual authority and decree supernatural healing, make us beacons that draw the sick, the broken, and the bound. Use our testimonies to ignite faith in those still struggling with disease and infirmity. May our lives become living demonstrations, visible to all, testifying to the scepter-granting, decree-empowering, healing-manifesting power of Jesus Christ. Lord, as we conclude this prayer of investiture and empowerment, we seal this work by faith. We believe it is accomplished according to your word. We receive the full manifestation of scepter authority and decreeing ministry, committing to exercise this spiritual authority with faithful consistency. We refuse to revert to doubt about our right to decree or hesitation in our commands, for behold, I give you the authority to trample on serpents and scorpions, and over all the power of the enemy, and nothing shall by any means hurt you. My dear brother and my dear sister in Christ, I encourage you to make this prayer your daily declaration. Let these faith-filled words become the foundation of your decreeing authority and healing ministry. Share this message of spiritual empowerment with others who have been called to hold the scepter of liberation. Leave your amen in the comments if you believe God has touched your life today through this prayer. May the Lord bless you and keep you. May the Lord make his face shine upon you and be gracious to you. May the Lord lift up his countenance upon you and give you peace. Go forth today with unshakable confidence, knowing that you hold the scepter of liberation and are fully authorized to exercise spiritual authority to decree supernatural healing. In Jesus' mighty name, amen.